You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome in to Six Screen Sunday program. We're glad you're with us today. Well, my name's Rick Farron. I'm up here in Boston, Massachusetts, and boy, we've got a good day going for people calling in and listening to the program. So glad you're with us today. We have a program right now. It's called Jehovah's Witnesses Share Their Story of Being in the Watchtower. Now, do you have a story? Would you like to tell your story? What, you have time to do it on Saturday night? Sometimes you don't have the time to really get into exactly what took place for you in the Watchtower. But here on Sunday, we'll give you up to 45 minutes, an hour if you need it. So by all means, call into the program. I'll put the number up and tell your story of being in the Watchtower. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother Rick. Happy Six Screen Sunday. How's everything going with you and Susan?
Well, the pedals to the metal. And I'll tell you, Anne Marie, I'm seeing some really good things happening here at the Six Screens. I am seeing, I'm seeing our numbers. More and more people are calling in. And that only leads me to understand that there's more and more people leaving the Watchtower. I mean, this isn't a channel that someone just says, hey, I think I'll check this channel out. These are people checking it out that are leaving the Watchtower. They're looking on Facebook. They're looking on YouTube. That they want to connect with people that have left. They really want to see what the so-called mentally diseased apostate is talking about. So I think it's great to see these numbers increasing, Anne Marie.
I think that's exactly what's going on. I see the evidence everywhere I look. And even I think the Watchtower is changing. I think Mike and Kim were saying that the Watchtower last-ditch efforts are going to have to become more mainstream and start talking more about Jesus instead of Jehovah. And we went to a memorial service not too long ago, and we were very surprised to walk into this Kingdom Hall and to see everybody so nice. And my husband turned to me later and he says, I don't think I heard Jehovah once. All I heard was Jesus Christ this and Jesus Christ that. Everybody was so nice. And I'm like, okay, what have you done with the Jehovah's Witnesses and who are you?
Well, I'll tell you, Anne Marie, everyone, as we know, has a story to tell. I mean, you have tons of stories as well as I do. But I just want to make a check here. Some people are saying that my mic, they're not hearing me that good. And some people say they can hear me good. So, okay. I mean, hopefully, let me get a little bit closer. Maybe I just make a couple adjustments here on. But anyways, I wanted to say, if you have a story to tell, I'm going to put a telephone number up right now. Why don't you call? Here's an excellent opportunity. If you have been affected by the teachings of the Watchtower, if you have a story to tell, and who doesn't have a story coming out of the Watchtower? So let me put the telephone number up right now. You can see it. Why don't you call that number? Call that number and come on and say, hey, I've got a story to tell. I want to tell you how I was treated in the Watchtower. Maybe you have some really good things to say. We'll entertain that as well. So by all means, give that a shot. And Anne Marie, I'll tell you what, if you were listening in last night, we had Jimmy Bell. Jimmy Bell, he came on the program last night, and he did say that he was taught how to be a salesman being in the Jehovah's Witness. Now, Jimmy Bell is a good salesman, I can tell you that right now. And he said that's one thing, the Watchtower taught us is all of us were taught how to go out and knock on doors. They call it cold canvassing, to go out and knock on doors all over the neighborhood and be able to speak to people randomly. That's a difficult thing to do. But Jehovah's Witnesses, many of them have made very good salespeople. And we mentioned last night that the service meeting was nothing but a sales meeting. The service meeting was teaching us how to go out and sell. It wasn't teaching us to be good teachers and preachers. It was teaching us how to be good salespeople, how to go out and convert someone, make a sale, so to speak. And you feel the same way, Emery.
Yes, I'd like to comment on that sales, projective, if I may. Started going door to door, of course, when I was very young, and I was almost full time at 9, doing a lot of witnessing at 11, doing street work, as we called it, standing on the corner in the financial district of San Francisco for hours at a time in the freezing cold, holding up the magazine. And we were always taught the basics: eye contact, smile, nod and smile with the eye contact. Be encouraging, encourage people to want to come up to you. In the door-to-door work, we were taught to smile, look directly at them. If they had a screen door, you open the screen door and hold it open with your body as you knock or ring the bell, and smile. And you don't ever ring the bell first. You always knock politely, wait a proper amount of time, and then knock again. And then after appropriate amount of time, ring the doorbell. Always eye contact, smile. Hi, how you doing today? My name is Anne Marie. I was just in your neighborhood. How are you? How are you doing? Oh, I see you have a lot of kids over there. Wow. I know how that is. And the reason why I'm here, we're in your neighborhood today, and we're just sharing blah, blah, blah. And just to be friendly, acknowledge them, validate them if they're busy or with kids, or validate something about their situation, and be very polite, acknowledging they're busy. And it was amazing, all these little points of being a good salesperson. You want to get them on the same page. You want them to feel that you care about them, that you honor their situation, that you interrupted them and whatever. My very first job, full-time, 6 days a week, 10 to 12-hour days, at 16 years old, was selling encyclopedias at a different city every single day. And every time before we left, we had a little sales meeting. You know how you have a service meeting? We had a service meeting every Saturday. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is just like going to the service meeting on the Saturday morning at the hall. What we're out there for, what's our presentation, let me hear what you're going to say, ways that we can improve. And we had to go to sales meeting. I was in sales for probably maybe 10 years. And I remember having to attend, with one job, we had to go to sales conventions. And it was literally exactly like the typical circuit assembly, the same size of this hall, the same routine, the same parts, the same encouraging demonstrations of how we could sell the product better, how we could present the product better, examples of others who made great sales and how we could do better too. And it was all created to create what I call a fire under your butt, so you could go out there and be enthusiastic and make better sales. Thank you, Rick.
Well, you're absolutely right. As you're talking, I'm thinking that's exactly. See, what you have to do to get people to go out and knock on doors. You got to get them excited, and you got to make sure that they can do it confidently, and that's what the service meetings did to all of us Jehovah's Witnesses. And how many times, let's go back and remember the service meetings. For the most part, remember they always had they had a householder, and then they had someone come up who was a Jehovah's Witness knocking on the door, and how they overcome objections and what have you. And we all remember those parts. Now, they don't do that as much now. They kind of dropped the service meeting. They more or less do biblical discussion, and they talk about, well, they call it the clam meeting is what they call it. They replaced the service meeting with the clam meeting. They kind of combine the book study into the ministry school together. But anyways, that service meeting was a sales meeting. And like I even mentioned last night, I've been in sales all my life. And really, from a young person, I got into selling. Then I have my own business. I have my own business today, and I go out and I sell. I talk to people about signs, and I do that pretty much every day. But what you do, there's two things you have to remember being a salesperson, and this is what we had to even understand when we were Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door. The objective was, of course, is to make a sale. The objective of a witness is to get someone to come into Jehovah's organization. So there's a couple of ways to do this. And I found that, whenever you're going out talking to someone and trying to get them to purchase or buy whatever you have, so somehow you've got to get across to them that the product you're selling them is going to be very beneficial. And that's what we did, probably not realizing it. But, we would go to the door and we would show people pictures in the magazines and the different publications. And the people would see all these big grapefruits, the size of a basketball. And you could live like this, and everyone's smiling and happy. And so they were going to benefit by becoming one of Jehovah's Witnesses. They were going to be able to live on paradise earth. So you tried to really get that at the forefront of their mind, that you become one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You can live on paradise earth forever. And of course, you can see your loved ones come back in the resurrection. So that was a benefit. They would benefit if they became one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, the other thing you have to do as a salesperson, not only get that customer to know they're benefiting, or the householder to know they're benefiting, but now you have to create a sense of urgency. How often do you see it with these TV commercials? Buy now, buy in the next 30 seconds, and we'll throw another one in for half price or whatever. They got to create that sense of urgency. Do it now. And that's what the witnesses would do as well. They would create that sense of urgency. Well, gee, can I think about becoming a Jehovah's Witness? Well, you want to do it pretty quick because Armageddon's coming. You really want to save your family, don't you? Armageddon's coming. I would say, let's start studying right now. And we were actually taught how to even start a Bible study on our very first call. Did you ever do that? Did you ever start a Bible study? I remember doing it only twice. And I was a witness for 50 years of starting a Bible study. I mean, that was the objective, right? Of the witnesses going door to door, was get that study started right away and get them into the so-called truth. Oh, Anne Marie, when we look back, did you have any fun being a Jehovah's Witness, Anne Marie?
I don't know about fun, but I think it was because I didn't feel like I had to push myself to go out in service. I only went out in service when I felt moved to. I didn't want my children to ever feel that pressure. I never even talked to them about baptism because I felt that everybody should love Jehovah from their own heart and make up their own mind. So for me, I just saw myself as, oh, I'm so blessed to be in Jehovah's organization. And I'd always look forward to the meetings because I felt like I could relax because I'm with my brothers and sisters, and I didn't let the negative bother me too much. But when I look back on it, like I said, when I was, I left the Watchtower at 15, and my mom kicked me out of the house at 16. So I had to get a full-time job. And like I said, my first full-time job was 6 days a week selling encyclopedias door to door. And I remember thinking, this is just like, being in doing this work. And I didn't see it as we were selling a product in the organization. I saw it as preaching the good news. But we were selling a product. We were presenting a product in such a way as to make it, something that they wanted. And, I had fun in the sense that I always saw everything in a positive way because I prayed to God, please help me see things positively. But not really, no, because of how they treated my children. That was what really bothered me. I could take a lot of meanness, but it didn't help when they were not kind to my children. So I'm sorry for talking so long, but I kind of had fun only because I really put my whole life around the schedule of being in the Watchtower. I saw every meeting I saw everything as a car metaphor. I said, every meeting to me is like going to the gas station to fill up on gas. Every single circuit assembly is getting a tune-up. Every single district convention is like getting a major tune-up. And every single international convention to me was like getting an overhaul. Everything was like a car metaphor. And I scheduled my entire life was all around the Watchtower, pleasing Jehovah, doing the right thing, trying to learn from the examples on the podium, wondering what was wrong with me because my family wasn't perfect like the family on the demonstrations, which I realized They weren't perfect. I just thought they all were perfect. Excuse me. Thank you, Rick.
Oh no, yeah, well, great little examples there. I like your car illustration. But as you're talking, one thing I often think about is I think about we think about the past, right? We all do. We all have memories, and you think about the past. Well, why is it that when you think about the past, and maybe this is a godly thing that he helps us with, but we always seem to remember the good old days, right? We even sometimes refer to it as that. Remember the good old days? So we think of ourselves as being out in service and meeting at the Kingdom Hall and our friends and our get togethers. And we think, wow, we remember some of the good things. We don't remember all the bad things. But when you stop and think about it, it was all bad. It was when you stop and think about it. It's for some odd reason, somehow we take our little pictures, the images in our mind, and we try to, at least they're there, and we think, oh, that was wonderful when we used to go door to door. We used to love it. Well, I don't know if we ever did, but our mind somehow brings us up that we did these things. The only thing I can remember really enjoying and even having fun with the witnesses is, we did have some fun from time to time out in service. We did, and we could talk and chat, and that was a good thing. So those are good memories. But for the most part, it was like having a second job. It was a chore. It really was. You're working, you're trying to raise a family, and Marie had her children. She had to make money. She had to work like myself. And at the same time, you had to make room for the meeting. And that had to be, according to the organization, that had to be a first priority. That had to be, you put that first. If there's an assembly coming up or a convention and your boss won't let you have the time off, I mean, they would they would outright say to you, quit your job and get another one. Yeah, it's not that easy, right? Jeez. But that's what the Watchtower would do, Emery.
It is so true. I remember putting so much pressure on my poor children. At one time, I had 5 kids in 5 different schools, and I'm working full time. And I worked in another city, not too far from where we lived. And I remember the stress of a Thursday meeting, getting there on time. And I was so frustrated that I told the kids I can't do it anymore. I can't rush home, park the car, run in the house, make sure you guys have eaten, make sure you guys are ready, worrying about getting out. I can't do it. I need to just drive up to the front of the house and have you guys all waiting on the sidewalk, ready to go. And I basically threatened them with the wrath of God if they didn't. And I drove up the next Thursday, and those sweet little babies, all ready, faces scrubbed and shiny, all dressed, all nice, all ready. And I told them how proud I was of them taking that stress off of me. And we went to the meetings. I always like to be at least 15 minutes early. To me, that's on time. But in my heart, I was like, how horrible it must be to be one of these precious children with that constant stress. I'm not talking about what they went through at school. How was your day? There's no relaxing time. It's just do better. You better this, and you better that, and hurry. Oh my God. What I did to my children, it just breaks my heart, Rick. But we thought we were doing it for Jehovah.
Well, they were putting you through the grinder. And, you mentioned how you would have to get them ready. They'd make yourself ready. We got to get to the meeting. We got to be there 15 minutes early. Because, if you came in late, everyone looked at you. They made you feel terrible. But, I remember Anne-Marie, and I had 5 children, my former wife and I, 5 children, had to support them, had to bust my butt just to put food on the table. And I would work all day long, and I'd come running home. I would get home at, say, 5:30, sometimes 6, and then I'd have to eat supper fast. My former wife would be getting the kids all ready, run down to the meeting, and I'd just get there, and my former wife hated getting there late because she felt that was like being a weak witness. So, boy, I'll tell you, I had to hustle my butt, really, to get to the meeting. But what I wanted to say about that is then they wanted to vote. So we're having the meetings at 7:30 on a Thursday night. So then I go to the meeting after hustling all day long. So one night they want to pass a resolution. How many people want to move the meeting up from 7:30 to 7? I'm thinking, what? I'm having a hard enough time getting here myself, on other people too. Well, it'd be so much easier for the kids. They can get home earlier. But I'm thinking, what about the parents that are working, trying to get to the meeting? So they're making a resolution, and it came out of the blue. So I'm sitting there. We're going to make a resolution here tonight on when we're going to have our meeting times. All right, now we're meeting at 7. We're meeting at 7:30. So now we're going to meet at 7. My heart's dropping down to my shoes. I'm saying this is going to be brutal. And sure enough, they passed it. Sure enough, they passed it. I was not a happy man, I'll tell you. I raised my hand. There's a couple others too, but most people wanted to move it up. But I'm saying, how can they do this? This is torture. Now I gotta, so it really cut into my income. It cut into a lot of things, and it really was not the sensible thing to do. You think they would take some of that stuff into consideration, right, Anne-Marie?
My God. The whole Thursday night thing was just ridiculous. And, you know, Tuesday night was better, but at least it felt more comfortable. But you had to get there early. I could understand your poor wife, how she felt about being late. It's not just about everybody staring at you if you're kind of late. It's that if you get there at least 15 minutes before the meeting's due to start, you feel like you can relax. The kids have time to say hello to each other. You relax because you know you're not late. You have time to say, hi, how are you? And your whole stress level starts to drop. If you're even 5 minutes before the meeting starts, it's rush, where do we sit? Get your coat, sit down. Oh, you have to go to the bathroom, hurry up, the meeting's about to start. It was so much stress, so much pressure, and it's like you never could do enough, you never could move fast enough, and you couldn't relax. And then they want you to do what? Put forth yourself some effort, push for more responsibility, you know, reach for higher, blah, 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 you know, go out and pioneer, auxiliary pioneer, do this and that. You know, look at your schedule carefully and prayerfully. See what more you can do for Jehovah, blah, 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 blah. And you feel like you're going to frickin' die. My brother, who was an elder for, I think, at least 25 years, he told me, he said, Anne-Marie, I don't even have it in my schedule to go to the bathroom.
He wasn't really exaggerating. Many times you had to hold yourself. You didn't have time to go. Really. Yeah.
No, it's so true. And he was working full time. He had a family, I don't know how many kids. And he said, and he told me it was hard enough to rush to his job. And he was always afraid of making a mistake because he had to hurry extra, you know, on a Tuesday and Thursday night. And then he was afraid he'd make a mistake. One time something blew up and burned his whole arm because he was in too much of a hurry to be really careful. That's terrible. I mean, battery acid pouring on his arm. He almost lost his arm because he was in a hurry. But the thing is, he said, on top of insult to injury, he said every Thursday and Tuesday night I had to shave again because you couldn't have that 5 o'clock shadow or you'd get in trouble. Pressure. Where's the joy, Rick? Where's the joy?
No,
one of the witnesses.
I can remember that too, having to shave twice. You know, it's in you shave, and when a man shaves, I mean, women don't shave, but I mean, when a man shaves and you're doing it in a hurry, you can cut yourself. You can. I mean, not bad, but you take little nicks out of your skin. So you're putting, you know, tissue paper on your face. Then you want to take it off before you go in the king. You would never want to go into the Kingdom Hall with that on there, but I can remember doing that. And I'd put a little tissue paper on my face till I got to the Kingdom Hall, and then peel it off so I wasn't bleeding. But I mean, that's the pressure they put you under. But you know, you mentioned something too, Anne-Marie. You said, and then not only that, you hustle like crazy to get to the meeting, and then you get to the meeting and you have to be, you know, prim and proper. You got to make sure the kids aren't making noise. You got to make sure that you're looking attentive. You got to make sure that you studied before you got there. All this pressure they put on you. But you said something that got me thinking. I brought this up before on the call. And, you know, you can never do enough. And I always remember this story. There's a big Ford dealership up here, and where they sell cars, of course. And I used to do business with them. And the owner, he was like in the mafia. He was a real strict guy and a real controlling guy on the people who work for him. So I remember one day I was in there doing some work at the dealership, and there was a young salesman, and the salesman just started there. He was so enthusiastic. So he said to the owner, the man's name, the owner was Mr. Rastusha. He was an Italian man. So I can still remember the young salesman. When Mr. Rastusha drove his car up and walked into the dealership, the young salesman said, Mr. Rastusha, you'll be so happy. I sold 5 cars today. And I'm sorry, he said, so sold 5 cars yesterday. Mr. Rastusha said, well, how many did you sell today? It always reminded me of the Watchtower, Anne Marie. They don't care what you did. What are you doing today, right?
Exactly. I remember in a talk on a Sunday, they were talking about the dangers of not paying strict attention about how you walk, with Jehovah. And he says, it only takes one stupid mistake. You could have been faithfully serving Jehovah for 30, 40 years. And basically he was talking about doing anything stupid that might get you to fellowship. And what a shame to lose out on everlasting life because you just did something stupid. Nothing but pressure and higher expectations, no matter how high the bar was and how hard you focused on reaching that bar. When you got close to it, you felt you were getting close to it, you almost got it, they moved it again. And they blame you because you're not doing enough. You're not jumping high enough. You're not running fast enough. You're not running far enough. It's never enough. Where is the support? Where is the validation? That's why a validation of someone, what they say, what they've been through, what they're going through, validation is so important because you are showing that you recognize them, what they're dealing with, how hard they're trying, validate. We didn't get validated, Rick. It was always do more. What's wrong with you? I was at a circuit convention one time, and the brother at the podium, there were 3 things that I couldn't believe I heard at a circuit assembly. One was, well, that's great. You all made it, most of you, on time. And we're all kind of like, we're killing ourselves here. And then he said, I wonder what your house looks like. If I went to your house right now, am I going to see dishes in the sink, clothes on the floor, clothes hanging off the couch, mess here, mess there? Is that what I see? Is that really reflection on how we should serve Jehovah? And we're all just sitting there going, what? We killed ourselves to make it here and we're getting picked on. And the other thing was about sex, married couples having children. And he was talking about married couples having sex more than he thought they should be having. He says, you need to learn how to control yourself. And he's talking to married Jehovah's Witnesses if they have more than 1 or 2 kids. They're having sex too much. You need to know how to control yourself.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I tell you, in fact, you got me laughing here. You got me laughing as well as this Keith here in the chat. Yeah, you got me laughing. Keith's got me laughing too. He says my dad had 3 tissues on his face right before his talk. All right. Hey, we've got. I think we got 301. 301. Did you want to speak up? Go ahead, 301. You're on with us.
Hey, Rick. How you doing today?
I'm good today.
Oh, there's Mark.
My name is pardon me. My name is Tyrone. Let me clear my throat. I'm sorry. I haven't spoken out loud all day. I've been home by myself. But yeah, there was like a void. There was like a team oral sex versus like team not oral sex in that congregation. There were like the people that supported oral sex to the people that didn't, and then there was the people that got counseled for it, and then there was the people that kind of fought against the elders. But there's also as I'm going through therapy, the therapist, I'm actually trying to look for a new therapist that specializes in cult survivors. But as I'm talking to my current therapist, she's reminding me of stuff that I forgot about. For example, I was associate 3 times, and I forgot that when I was reinstated, I forgot how embarrassing it was when I couldn't say a prayer after getting reinstated immediately. For my congregation, you had like a probation period or whatever. And I forgot how embarrassing that was because my heart would beat every time after a meeting because I was so scared that the servant or elder would call my name and I would have to say publicly that, hey, like, I can't say the prayer. And I forgot how damaging that might have been for me. I never thought about that until I took therapy recently. There's a lot of subconscious things that are residual effects with this code, you know, and man, it's so weird. It's so weird, Rick, because at the same time, a lot of XJWs don't want to hear this, but at the same time, it's also a lot of benefits that came because it did, like for me personally, this isn't everybody's story, but for me personally, I never had an STD and I don't have any children. I'm 34 years old, and an African-American 34-year-old with no children is pretty rare in America right now. And so I'm at the point where it took me not a long time, but it took me time to like acknowledge the cult, but also the benefits that I'm not saying, I don't even know what I'm saying, like as far as would I do it again. I would say yes for now. But it was hard for me to recognize also how beneficial it was, ironically. And I'm still determining whether I would take the good and the bad right now. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, to this day, I know more scriptures than Christians. I'm not saying that the doctrine I know isn't like translated traditionally, but I know more scriptures than most Christians. I have a lot of not moral, but professional characteristics that I think people might overlook. And it's very interesting looking back, man. So I try not to be bitter towards it. I try to just accept it. For me personally, if I'm going to quote unquote fail or be a bad guy in life, I'd rather it be my choice. So I'm still an advocate for getting people out. But it's a very weird dynamic as far as taking the good and acknowledging the good and acknowledging the bad and separating it. What I want to know is, what's your thoughts on that? When you woke up, did you ever sit and think about what good came from it and was able to think about that objectively?
Oh, well, we'll ask Anne-Marie first, and then I'll give you my thoughts. Anne-Marie, go ahead, answer. What was your name, sir?
Tyrone.
Oh, Tyrone. Okay.
My name is Tyrone. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you, Tyrone. Yeah, go ahead, Anne-Marie. Tell Tyrone what good came from you being a Jehovah's Witness.
Tyrone, first of all, I want to thank you so much for calling in, and I appreciate your thoughts and your honesty. and what you say is true. And while I suffered a lot in the organization and paid a very high price, as well as my children, I do remember thinking back. I was very young. Nobody would believe it to look at me now, but I actually was a very young, pretty young lady in the Watchtower. And my husband remembers. He goes, yeah. But the thing is, I thought, you know, the downfall of being a single, young, pretty woman with children is that you tend to attract predators who are looking for women who are, you know, wanting a mate. And so they use and abuse. And I've heard more stories of women that were single moms, struggling, lonely, depressed, wanting help, wanting love. And and they get with these guys, and the kids grow up and say, I remember mom drinking. I remember mom, you know, with a different guy every month, and this and that and that and this. And I looked back and I thought, as hard as it was being in the organization, I have to be grateful. And I thought maybe God allowed me to be in this cult and suffer the way I did as a way of protecting me, because I always kept a clean house. I tried to raise my children according to the Bible, and to love Jehovah, and to be well-mannered and well-spoken, and to be honest and helpful and thoughtful and gracious and forgiving. And I'm thinking, what if I hadn't? I told my kids, if I had liked alcohol, because I tried to make myself like alcohol because I was so stressed all the time. And I couldn't make myself like a glass of wine at night or anything. And I said, if I had liked alcohol at all, I would have been drunk every day. I would have been a complete drunk just to survive. So you are so correct, and I appreciate your bringing it out. It's not that everything was bad, because if everything was bad and negative in the Watchtower, we would not have been there. Nobody would. But we were told and indoctrinated to concentrate on the quote unquote benefits. Oh, you're part of the worldwide association of brothers. You're with the true Christians. You have real love. You have real friends. Jehovah's protecting you by keeping you away from the entrapments of the world. So I agree with you, Tyrone. There were many benefits, and I am grateful. If I hadn't been in the Watchtower, God knows what stupid mistakes I would have done and what more damage I would have done to my kids. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry, Tyrone, for going on.
Well, go ahead, Tyrone. What do you think of Anne Marie's comments there, Tyrone?
I think that I agree with what she is saying completely. I want to know, and this is like a rhetorical question, kind of, but I totally agree with what you're saying. There's many benefits, but even to this day, I'm still wondering, does the long-lasting residuals overshadow the benefits? Because, man, it's just hard to tell sometimes, Rick, because sometimes you got to look at yourself and say, do you love yourself? And if you love yourself, it's kind of hard to take anything back because you wouldn't be who you are now if you didn't go through that. But if you're struggling like with self-esteem, which has a big, which is damaged significantly in a congregation, then you probably could have been better off without it. And so it's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell, man. But I would like your opinion on that, if I can hear it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, in fact, I was a Jehovah's Witness for 50 years of my life. I'm 76 now. And when I look back at it, there was some good. And of course, there was some bad. But I have to tell you, a lot of people I know have been really hurt by it. You know, I took it seriously. I was a loyal witness. I wasn't always called into the back room. I wasn't out grossly committing sins and doing things that were wrong. And that's one thing I will say, as even Anne Marie touched on, at least what it did for me is it kept me, not that I was going to be some crazy person anyways. I just wanted to be a straight-laced person. And so maybe the Watchtower helped me with that. It helped me to be morally correct. I did have a moral compass coming out of there. It helped me also to be able to talk to people, the ministry school and what have you. And I benefited from that in life as I went on and I had my own business. But sad to say, a lot of people, Tyrone, if they really took the Watchtower really seriously and really got themselves deeply involved in their teachings. I know a man right up here in Massachusetts back in 1974 when the Watchtower said that Armageddon was coming in 75, even though they deny it today, but that they did say it. So I had a friend of mine. So he sold his beautiful house. He packed his family up and he went out to where the need was great in Iowa, out in the cornfields. He went out there, spent all his money. He thought Armageddon was coming. And now he's stuck out there. He's stuck out there in the middle of Iowa. In his house today here in Massachusetts would probably be worth $700,000-800,000. So that man has been really hurt by the Watchtower. So if anybody really took this organization totally to heart as he did, and we all know people that did that, they suffer a lot more. They don't come out of the Watchtower unscathed. They've been hurt. But there's some good things to it. But boy, I'm just glad I didn't get any deeper into it than I did, Tyrone. And how about yourself? Did you really follow the teachings to the T, or were you a little bit more vacillating around? What do you think?
That's a great question. So I have to keep my age in consideration. Where I could have made the same choices other people made, but I have enough youth to, for lack of a better word, kind of like, what's the word for it? Kind of recover from it, academically speaking. So you brought up a good point, because I can't have no rebuttal or pushback on like the suicide that it caused. There's no way around that for me to say that anybody benefited from that, in any way. So I'm glad you brought that to my attention. And you're making me also keep in mind my age, because I'm 34 now, and I woke up when I was 30. And so really I still had enough time to kind of recover in almost any way when it comes to like going to school and financially. And so, with that being said, you make me want to like be more of an advocate towards being like anti that. And I would say, I mean, yeah, it's just to me, it's no question about it right now. It's like ultimately there was way more. Overall, I can't make my experience unique. I can't overshadow other people's experience. I want to say, generally speaking, it is way more toxic in general for most people because of things like what you described. I just happen to benefit enough for me to take some good and still be young enough to have time to overcome what they've taken away from me. But I'll tell you what, man, like, I have a really cool story, man. Like, I had, me and my brothers were like the popular guys in our area, and everything that we did, everyone else followed. And so we could start like some type of fad, and like the elders would counsel us because they knew people would follow us. It was me and I had two brothers, and we were good looking tall guys that pretty were down to earth. This might be going off in a tangent, but just to paint the picture, my older brother was a good looking jock, cool guy. He just got all the women, so to speak. I don't hope that doesn't sound too like turn offish. I gravitated towards like more what they would have considered the nerds and everything like that. And my younger brother just kind of picked this litter like between the two. And so we ended up being like a very popular movement. But with that being said, the elders would impose whatever they wanted everybody else to do. They would make sure we did because they knew everyone else would follow us. So thankfully that leadership quality still was in us, but the self-esteem and the suppression of our creativity is like, what could I have did if that wasn't the wall in front of us? Like that's my main thing that kind of effed me up. But at the same time, man, like at the same time, I had good experiences now where it's weird, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. Like, okay, I haven't heard you talk about this on your channel, but I do want to ask you this. And if you don't want to comment on it, I understand. But spiritually speaking, have you analyzed or seen a common denominator with Jehovah's Witnesses and other cults? And do you equate that to some type of stage path at all? Like, do you believe that some of us are like we're meant to go through that experience? I just don't think I have seen you comment on that, and I'm curious to that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, Anne-Marie, why don't you answer that question first? I'm going to let Anne-Marie answer that first. Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Well, personally, this is just my belief based on my own experience and looking back and coming to my own conclusions. But I remember being a free spirit, a free thinker, believing that God loved me so much and that Jesus loved children more than anything, because that's what my mother taught me when I was very small. And when I was 5, the witnesses came to my mother and they indoctrinated her. She fell for the Watchtower belief system, hook, line, and sinker. And all of a sudden, everything became hardened, everything changed. So I think that because we have free will, we are allowed to go through whatever comes our way. Not that God brings us into it or God takes us out of it. I don't know. But I do believe, just believing because my mom believed and I trusted. So my brain was inculcated with the belief system. But because I believe down deep in my heart that God gave us thinking ability, He gave us the power to perceive between and to tell the difference between right or wrong, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and the ability to come to our own conclusions. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says very clearly, even in the New World Translation, make sure of all things. Paul praised the Bereans at Acts 17:11 for not just believing what they were being taught. Oh, hearts and flowers, rainbows and lollipops, how great. Oh, wonderful. No, but he praised them for checking out everything according to the scriptures, examining the scriptures daily as to whether these things were so. So we are given the admonition to not only use our brain, but the ability to think for ourselves. Now, if we get caught up in this and caught up in that and believe this and believe that, I think we're allowed to go through and experience the repercussions of our choices. I never say consequences because to me that sounds negative. But if I chose to see that this organization, according to my experience, were full of snobs, prejudiced people, racist people, people who thought they were better than because they had money, because they had a nice car, and they were married. I mean, I saw so much criticism, arrogance, and judgment that at 13, I thought, I don't think I want to be here. At 14, I knew I didn't want to be there. I wanted no part of it. And at 15, I made up my mind. I didn't care how much my mom beat me. I didn't care. I told her straight up, I'm not going back. I don't care. And when I was 16, she threw me out of the house. Okay, fine. I decided I am not going to let my life be ruled by people that tell me they know better than I do and I better do what they say or else I'm a bad person. You know what? F you. That's the way I felt. So I had to survive. But stupid me, because I had been hearing forever that Armageddon was coming in 1975, no later than the autumn of 1975. They came to my door January 1975. Are you crazy? What are you doing? You look at your life. You've messed it up. You need to come back to Jehovah. Well, they convinced me to come back. So I throw myself back into the organization. Now, that wasn't God, I don't believe. I don't believe it was anything. It was me not using the brain that God gave me. The inculcation, the indoctrination, the mind programming of the Watchtower was still in me because I had just left. I had never learned that they were preaching lies, that they were twisting scriptures. I had never known. I always believed, without thinking about it, that if you really wanted to get close to God, if you really want to be in the right religion, that's Jehovah's Witnesses. I believe that wholeheartedly. I just didn't want any part of it because the people made me mad. I wanted to slap most of them straight up down, right down to the ground. And I thought, well, I'm not going to make it anyway, so screw them. I'm going to have my life while I can. But in that presentation, I forgot your original question. Did God bring you there or not there? I believe that God allowed me to be going through that because Lord knows I had plenty of opportunity to try to examine the scriptures to see if these things were so. I could have gone to another Christian church and kind of asked questions, and it never occurred to me. So when I got out, like I said, I thought back. What if I had never gone back? Yeah, I suffered. Yes, my children suffered. But what if I had become a drug addict, an alcoholic? What if I had had all these different men? What if my children had been sexually abused because I was with this guy or that guy and brought him into the house? So I think that when it became time, when I got to the point where I was sitting in the middle of a Thursday night meeting, so dead inside that I literally was praying in my heart to Jehovah God, please, Jehovah, please don't let me wake up tomorrow. Please, could I just stop breathing because I was just that miserable. But I didn't know why. And thank God, and I used to tell my story all the time. I said, I feel like the Lord ripped me out of the organization by my hair because I over and over and over heard in my heart, get out, get out. I'm not kidding. I heard it all the time in my gut, in my heart, in my spirit, in my mind, get out. And I kept thinking it was Satan, and I would pray to Jehovah, oh, give me strength, help me to serve you, help me not to listen to Satan. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't think God does this or does that. I think that the Lord loves us and allows us to just experience whatever. And we do along the way, every single step we take. We're making a choice. You're making a choice to call in. You're making a choice to listen. You're making a choice to talk. Thank you, Tyrone.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that did answer my question. And it sounds like your answer is your answer is leaning towards like us not having to have a certain path, but to choose a different way. But what I'm curious, your opinion is, and this is, I don't know if you still kind of have credence with, like, if you still have the validity in the Bible, but the thing that piques my interest is that, and let me know if you agree with this, but Judas, and there's 3 examples in the Bible where it seems like it was an inevitable result. For example, someone had to betray Jesus. Judas
had to be a villain in an opera.
Right. So, and even with Esau and Jacob, there's a scripture that says that there's no action that Esau took, but God hated Esau before he was born. There was nothing he did. but he just hated them. Romans chapter 9. And so my point is, how do we know, in your opinion, how do we differentiate their past that were supposed to happen from us having paths that we were supposed to go through? If Jesus needed someone to betray him, and in an organization, they said, well, it didn't have to be Judas, it could have been this, but someone had to be it. So someone was, in my opinion, predestined to do that. To me, it was more of a culprit. It's not an enemy. Like Judas he helped Jesus, but like he helped Jesus accomplish.
There's no facts either way on predestination. That we don't know. The answer is we don't know. And you could spend 30 years asking big questions in philosophy. The thing that impressed me was how lucky you are that all three of you are brothers and you're still contacted with each other. You're still supportive for each other. You can still work together with each other. I have a message for all three of you. You sound young. You sound like you have time to be and do anything that the three of you would like to do, either separate career paths or with a business together. You sound like you can get any education. You sound like you can be fathers. You sound like you can be successful. Even in the crazy economy we're in right now, there's new computer things coming in. Just find out what the latest stuff is. And I'm going to share with you something that someone told me a long time ago that's related to the class system in this country that nobody's probably ever told you before. Okay?
Yes, good.
If a young man or a young woman wanted to go to medicine or law, the poor family says, well, gee, Binky, that's 8 years of schooling. The rich family says, dear, that's only 8 years of schooling.
Yes,
so you have time. Whatever you want to be, whatever path, you have time to be it, to do it, save for retirement, keep yourself well, learn what foods to eat and what not to eat, have a schedule for work and sleep. The three of you can be successful separately or together, have families, have lives, and have happiness and health. And I wish you all the best.
Well, let me get your opinion on this. I'll switch the question over. I just want to know, what is you and by the way, Rick, to be honest with you, you actually are the very first apostate video I've seen over 10 years ago. I was about 21, actually. That's when YouTube was just starting, and your video scared me to death.
At 31, you can be anything, baby. You could go to med school, school. You could own a company.
Yeah. No, I just want to give Rick his. I just want to show some appreciation for Rick's consistency in all the years, because I never knew I was going to come back to him over 10 plus years later. When his first video scared me off when he was outside of the Kingdom Mall, when I accidentally ran upon it. So I just want to give him my appreciation. But like, what do y'all think is the end game for the governing body? When are they? Is it just the current power?
You know what my answer is, since you've asked me on a Sunday, because Saturday I could have all kinds of theories. Sunday I kick back and I have a cup of coffee and I have a waffle and I'm sitting here. And the truth is that I don't care, because my life is mine.
Right.
Well, let me pick.
I want you guys to go out and do it, because some of us, we're older. We lost time to do certain things. I have retirement. I'm doing okay. Rick and Susan are doing okay. Some of these brothers and sisters, they didn't have time to be doing okay. I wish I had a family. I don't. So don't get so tied up in what is this club doing that I left. You know, Root Boy Slim had a fun song, "You Can't Leave My Club." You can leave the club and you don't have to even check back with us. We'd like it if you would, but you don't have to.
Totally. Yeah. And to this day, this is the least I've been subscribed to the channels on. Like, and I totally get it. Like, I'm working on. This is the least subscribed channels I've ever been as far as like educated content. I have maybe a handful that I still subscribe to, but I'm a big advocate of just like kind of like capitalizing on what you're able to do, like on the liberation that we're able to enjoy right now. But I mean, I still get curious. Like I'm confused as far as what pleasure or if there is a 10 game for the older guys. Like for example, is this has Tony Morris met his goal where he's just chilling on a beach somewhere, and that was his thing. Like, Rick, what's your opinion?
Well, Tyrone, here's the thing with the governing body today. You realized 3 months ago that the governing body, they have a new governing body member. His name is Jody Jadell. Do you know anything about Jody, Tyrone?
No, I don't.
Well, Jody Jadell is now the newest member on the governing body. They now have 10 governing body members. It might be 11, I'm not sure. But anyways, Jody Jadell was a big-time banker in Europe. And he, all of a sudden, now becomes a governing body member. Now, what happened here in the last 3 months is the Watchtower organization set up a group to invest people's money. It's an investment group. And the Watchtower, I was reading this in a business publication in Ireland. It's an investment firm. They take care of and help people get more money with their assets. And what happened is Jody Jadell was involved with this investment firm in the Watchtower. This newspaper is an article out of Ireland. It's like the Wall Street Journal here in America, but this was an Irish business newspaper. And what they were saying is the Watchtower is worth $7 billion. Now, you know, when we stop and think about a religion, we have to, if it's a Christian religion, we have to think of Jesus. Well, would Jesus open up an investment firm? Would he invest people's money? No, the answer is. So, you know, so the governing body is now being found out about. This live streaming that they do out of Warwick, this is destroying them. You know, at one time when the governing body wasn't in the public like they are now, you know, we had no idea what these guys even look like. But now all of a sudden they're coming on and they're making complete jackasses of themselves. They really are. And it's turning a lot of people off, Tyrone. A lot of people, believe it or not, are leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses because they're looking at these guys and saying, they're our leaders? No, Pixie was right. Pixie was right with you. What I see with you've got a lot of ability. First of all, it doesn't, you're not one bit nervous coming on this program, are you?
No, not at all. I'm peace with anybody that doesn't want to talk to me or any consequences. My morals already overshadow my consequences for any type of advocacy with this.
Yeah, and I noticed that you have a lot of confidence when you speak. You speak with confidence. And Pixie's right. You and your brothers, or even yourself, or your brothers combined, could do wonderful. And, you know, the Watchtower, they didn't want us to do good. And you were mentioning how you and your two brothers, you know, you're kind of like the hip guys in the congregation. People kind of followed you. You could have gone on. If it wasn't for them, they could have stifled something really good for you. And they don't give two hoots of beans about it. I know so many people that had super talent. We had a program on the 6 screens a couple of years ago called Apostates Got Talent. And some of these people that came on could have really went big time. They had what it took, but the Watchtower put a damper on all of that. They just wanted you to just remain a Jehovah's Witness. Don't be going out looking for better things in the world. I mean, they've been saying this for years, and look at all the people, Tyrone, they hurt. But you're a 34-year-old man. Man, having the knowledge you have coming out of the Watchtower right now, you have more knowledge than many people. You're never going to be duped again, Tyrone. You've been duped once, and you will not be duped again, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rick. Rick, when I even feel weird calling you Rick. I feel like
call me Rick. Call me Rick. It's fine.
But Rick, when I first came out at the dawn of COVID, and I started going to other religions and immediately hearing the stories that I just thought were unique to Jehovah's Witnesses. For example, the first Hindu temple I went to, they miraculously, and I say that in air quotes, had the exact money to pay off their first month's rent for their first temple. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds super familiar. So I agree with you that I will not be tricked as easily, I would say, as you know, especially when you're born into it. It's more of a natural normalization of seeing things as normal. That's not normal. You know what I mean? But I totally agree. And talking to you and like others, like the lady I was speaking to just now, it makes me have more gratitude for my age and waking up. So I'm going to make sure I take advantage of that. So far, and trust me, like I'm nowhere near the amount of attention. I don't do it as much, nowhere near as much research anymore because I feel like it's stifling me from kind of healing. But I have reached a point, and I would like your opinion on this, where as sucky as it sounds, as aluminum foil-ish as it sounds, I feel like damn near that the witnesses as a whole are like a siphon cult for pedophiles. I feel like the government's protecting them. I feel like it's higher than the governing body. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the powers to be that's above them, whether you want to say it's the United States government, I feel like they have them in place to hide pedophiles in order to spread them out if they're in trouble and allow them opportunity to do that. Like when I follow rabbit holes of lawsuits, it always comes up to where someone says we can't talk about this, like to a lawyer that's not a witness. And so I'm like, yo, I think that they are a set up system for pedophiles on the government, and I think that they purposely set up the system so that pedophiles can have their fun and be able to escape and go in and out. That's the only thing that's the only reason why I think they've been getting away with this for so long. That kind of was a worse segue from what you were saying, but yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that right now, I follow this a lot. I do the news every Saturday night, but you realize the difficulty they're having, the witness organization is having in Norway, Tyrone? You've heard about that, right? Norway?
Yes.
Well, no, Norway, there's a number of countries right now that are really investigating the Jehovah's Witnesses. Norway, Denmark, Belgium. Also, you've got Japan. You've got about 10 countries right now. The Czech Republic, Slovakia. You've got about 10 countries that are investigating the witnesses. And it's because of their violating human rights. Norway is ticked off big time because of what goes on in that religion concerning shunning people, how young people have been kicked out of their house. So Norway really put the hammer on the Jehovah's Witness organization, and they had a trial this week. And in that trial, the Watchtower was trying to defend themselves, and they had 25 ex-Jehovah's Witnesses come in and tell their stories of abuse, child abuse, when they were smaller. Some of the people talked about how they were shunned and how bad it was. And now that country is really coming after the Jehovah's Witnesses and deregistering them. They won't be able to operate as a religion, it looks like, in Norway. And also a number of other countries doing the same. So this idea, I mean, I thought at one time too, because the Watchtower gets away with all these sex abusers, I thought that, geez, maybe they are in cahoots. They know people in high places that are kind of, going along with them. But that's not the case. We have Pennsylvania right now. In Pennsylvania, Tyrone, every single congregation, there's over 500 congregations in the whole state. Every single one of them is being investigated by the Attorney General, and because of so much child abuse. So, it wouldn't be that they would be in cahoots with one another. It's a thought, though, that at one time I even thought about, but it's now the governments are catching up on these bums. Their image is becoming very tarnished, very tarnished.
Okay, because it seems like America has a special immorality to their culture. It just seems like that. It seems like I don't know if you're familiar with the Hunger Games theme, or what can I compare it to? If I had to use the word Babylon the Great, I hate to use that, but it seems like America is the Babylon the Great of the world. It seems like not even most, but it seems like a lot of corruption and I would say unnatural desires are in the root of America. And I feel like when you're naming other countries that are like pushing back on Jehovah's Witnesses, I feel like that makes more sense to me, because I feel like America has the least morality and they have the biggest backing of the immoral. Like I'm not just saying this in a Bible-based way. I'm just saying the general moral compass of everybody. Like I believe everybody has a moral compass, and your culture determines the extreme of it. So if you feel like someone's bad for stealing, your culture determines the extreme of how bad it is, but you know that it's bad. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like America has the most toxic, man, and I hate this, it's going to sound really biased, but my point is this. I'm glad that everybody in the other countries are cracking down, but I feel like America has the biggest walls or firewall. I feel like the other ones are like posers. Like when I say posers, I mean that was a setup to be distracted anyway. America has the nucleus of the sickness. And I'm happy to hear about the Pennsylvania cases, but when America starts cracking down, I feel like the whole world is going to start cracking down. But I'm happy to see the progress that you're announcing to me. I didn't know about this stuff, but that's just something for me to analyze more about how many other America backings or America power. Because look, okay, let's be honest. You wouldn't have known, like a normal person wouldn't have expected the list. I'm not gonna say the name, but the list that's going on, like it rhymes with Jepstein. That list, like who would have known how exposed that is and how obvious that is? You know what I mean? But now it's so obvious, and so my point is, how deep does that rabbit hole go? Because Rick, no doubt you know about elders that have been moved around well, I'm just gonna end it right there, because I gotta articulate my point a little better, and I appreciate your knowledge and the other situations going on in other countries. So,
well, we're glad you called in, Tyrone. In fact, some people might want to talk to you. Do we have someone who wants to say hello to Tyrone? Go ahead. I just heard somebody on there and wasn't sure. But anyways, no, and we're glad you called in, Tyrone. Anne Marie, what do you think? Wasn't it good to hear from him?
Oh, absolutely. Made my whole Sunday. Tyrone, we're so grateful that you called in, because we got to see everything through the eyes of yet another experiencer. But I did want to address a few questions that you asked that were not answered. As far as Judas, you asked if he was predestined and what we thought. If he was predestined to do what he did to Jesus, I think that probably maybe he was, because he must have loved Jesus, or he wouldn't have been one of the apostles that Jesus chose. I think that just because a person is a really good person, it doesn't mean that they cannot be manipulated, especially by a powerful evil entity, because it was part of God's plan that Jesus have to suffer and die the way he did, to be a complete sacrifice, not to die an easy death, but to really, really have the story of his incredible suffering, or it wouldn't have impacted us later, what he went through willingly for us. So I think that when Jesus looked at Judas and said, basically, do what you have to do, and Judas went and did it, but we know that he deeply regretted it. I do believe that, because we have all done things that we look back, hurt people, done things that we wish we hadn't done, and just absolutely, I wish I could take it back. I wish I had never done that. What was I thinking? And so on. Judas felt so bad. He didn't spend the money. He didn't even give it away. He threw it on the ground, his 30 pieces of silver, and he hung himself over a cliff to where his guts spilled out. He obviously was devastated in his heart, but Jesus knew what he had to do. And again, he must have loved Judas, and Judas must have loved him, or he never would have been one of his apostles. And the other thing you asked is, what do we think is going to happen to the governing body? One, We know that this organization of Watchtower that claims to be the only channel of God's love, the only way we can know the truth, the only true religion, God's organization. How many phrases have we heard in reference to Watchtower? The Ark of Salvation is what I got grown up heard. Ark of Salvation is what I heard all the time in reference. Our mother, like our mother. But we know that Watchtower is a cult, a very tyrannical, dictatorial, mind control cult. It is cold-hearted. It's all about making money, all about keeping you down, all about keeping you under their control. Obey without question. Absolute loyalty is the number one rule. So we know this does not represent God. We already know that. We don't want to get lost too much in the details because, like Pixie brought out, you are young enough that you can just, great. I believe in therapy, but please go to school. Take some classes that interest you. Take an aptitude test. But as far as the governing body, since we know Watchtower cannot be the truth, and they can't be God's anything because God doesn't change. The Bible says that. The Bible says don't put your trust in earthly man, but they constantly reiterate in your brain, trust us. Jesus trusts us. Do you trust us? Oh, hell to the no. So you already know. So as far as the governing body, they're the controlling entity. We all refer to them as the puppets of the real power, which is not the governing body. They know what they're doing. They know what they're screwed up with. And I think that's why Anthony Morris drank so much. I think he got to the point where he couldn't take it anymore, and he finally broke and told them off and whatever and protected himself. And he said, basically, I'll keep my mouth shut if you just keep your mouth shut about me and don't defame me and don't disfellowship me or ruin my family. Just let me live out the rest of my life in peace because I can't do this anymore. The governing body knows what they're doing. That's what I believe. Rick brought out the great example of them bringing in a basic real estate giant, a Mongol who's so good. They want to make their money. They are real estate Mongols. They are a cult. They don't give a flying rat's behind about anybody in their cult. They just want properly trained, obedient, non-thinking Watchtower drones. You already know they can't be of God, because if they were, they wouldn't be supporting and hiding and protecting pedophiles. They wouldn't be supporting the man who beats his wife, who comes crying to the elders for help, or she's being horribly abused. Oh, go back and be a better wife. Jesus would never support any of that. So we again know Watchtower cannot be God's anything. So you're out. You're not an old man. You're not in your 40s or 50s. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't get out until it's too late to really do anything. You are at the pinnacle of your youth. You are at the pinnacle of your strength. You are a grown man. Thank you, God. You are not saddled with children, because if you have children, you got to put them first, and your life just wastes away. I'm sorry, because you have to work for them. Please get your education. Do everything that Pixie was saying, and just know that the pieces will fall in place. When you put yourself first, ask God to guide you if you believe in God. If you're not comfortable praying to God, talk to the universe, talk to the angels, talk to the spirit guide, talk to whatever makes you feel comfortable. One Christian said she prays to Father God. If she didn't understand this or that, just say Father God. Just know you're loved and that you have a right to be here, Tyrone. You were born for your place to be taken in the world, not to be controlled by anybody else, anybody else's belief system. Nobody else has a map that is right for you. You make your map. You are here for a purpose. You're a unique child of God, a prince of the universe. And you need to start by honoring yourself and trusting in yourself and knowing that you have the right to think for yourself, decide for yourself, make your own choices, have your own experiences, and learn from them. That is your right. And thank God you're young enough. Believe me, you are young enough. If I was 34 again, shoot. I mean, I don't even remember barely being 34. But go ahead and live your life, because God had you born into this life. You're here for a reason. Take your place. Thank you, Tyrone.
That was beautiful. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm going to take heed to those words. I mean, I'm very appreciative of my timeline. Even when waking up, I mean, it's I'm sure that we all can relate to these sentiments, but the automatic recycle bin we put our neighbors in when listening to their opinions, their witnesses, is just so toxic for society. Just like the mindset we had in the past where you're wrong, I'm right, I'm just waiting for you to stop in your paragraph for me to input my rightness. And man, that's what kind of makes it kind of F's me up a lot. Naturally, I'm getting over it, but we just never gave them a fair shot. Like we were the most actually ingenuous people and listening to people's opinions when we were preaching. No matter what they said, was going out one ear, going in one ear out the other. But anyway, I do believe in God, and you know, it's like my past. Okay, I really have to say this because it seems like a lot of people around my age have gone through this. Well, a lot of people in general. It seems like there's a phase when you wake up, so to speak. And for me personally, I'm not a big Bible religious guy. I look at the Bible from a different lens now. It's very unconventional, but I think it's still very applicable and beneficial. But it seems like I'm back in the path where I'm back to the Bible now. All right, I did the atheist thing, I did the spiritual thing, then I did the pro-African thing, then I did the pan-African thing, then I did the maybe this is Buddhism, and now all of that, I'm all the way back to the Bible, but I'm looking at it in a different lens now. And I want to just share one thing before I go. I think it's a very beautiful thought because I believe there's a lot of validity with the Bible too. When Jesus was asked what's the greatest commandment, and he said, love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And the second commandment was love your neighbor. I was like, how interesting is that? Because if we are all, going back to the scripture, let us make man our own image. If we are all pieces of God, then loving ourselves is the highest form of worship we can do. So I'm like, no wonder Jesus said, love God. Because you have to love God in yourself before you even able to give the love to other people. That resonates with me more than anything. And I'm like, it F's me up because I'm like, despite my lack of religious attachment, there's something going on with the Bible though. There's something going on, like, it's just something that is weird that contributes to its longevity and relevance. It's weird. But I'll figure it out later, even if I feel like it. But my point is, I appreciate your words, and I won't be on the past, like moaning over the past long, where I let that hold me back. I will continue to go forward and appreciate the time I have, and I will try to help as much witnesses that I can. I always tell people, you don't try to wake up the sheep, you try to wake up the lion. The sheep are sheep; they have a role, but you want to wake up the lions. The lions are the ones that need reassurance to what they already believe. So I try to wake up the lions. I don't try to wake up the sheep. And I appreciate your opinions. That's it. I just want to leave off with that. I appreciate your time, and Rick, I appreciate you let me talk.
Well, Tyrone, we loved having him on. We really did. Thank you for calling in. Now, can I ask where you calling in from, Tyrone?
I live in Mexico right now, but I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland. I've been in Mexico for almost a year. I moved down here. But I'm from Maryland. I went to the Willard Road congregation, Glass Manor, for pretty much all my life. But I moved to Mexico about a year ago, and I'm just here, saving money and working my American job, remote. And yes, so I'm calling from Mexico, originally from Maryland.
Well, good for you. Good. Whereabouts in Mexico?
I'm in Playa del Carmen, so I'm a little south of Cancun and a little north of Tulum. It's kind of like the next big tourist attraction place, but I was here before it got too popular, so I'll be here before everybody finds out about it. But yeah, Playa del Carmen. The crime is very low. The cost of living is very low, so I'll be here until the wheels fall off.
Well, good for you. You be safe down there, and we want to thank you very much for calling into the program today. Thank you, Tyrone.
Thank you. I'll tune in some more. Thank you so much.
Yeah, don't.
Thank you for your work, Claudia.
Well, don't be a stranger. You come back and see us, okay?
Okay, I promise you I will. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye. Boy, well, that's something, Anne-Marie, huh? Boy, I'll tell you, people, you never know who's calling in. See, what I did is I put the number up on YouTube so people can see this. They watch from all over the world, Anne-Marie. So he saw the number, evidently, and called in. Isn't that good, huh? Boy.
It's absolutely good, and it's so great that people can later watch it in the archive. I'm so glad your shows are put up on YouTube, because sometimes you need to listen to a show several times and you catch more things when you listen and listen, because he brought up a great point. I never heard anybody else say this, and I said it myself, and everybody thought I was crazy. He said, if we are all pieces of God, then we have to love God before we can love ourselves and love others. Because remember, 1 John 4:8 says that God is love, and it makes sense. And my mom thought I was crazy saying that we are literally all a piece of God. Because I thought, if God made everything, the trees, the bugs, the grass, and us, then we're all a part of God. We're all a piece of God. And that makes so much sense. And I was like blown away that Tyrone brought that up. Anyway, thank you, Rick.
Well,
thank you for letting us talk.
That was a good comment. Michael King, did you want to say something, Mike?
Yeah, I've enjoyed listening to the brother there. I just want to tell you, when you were talking about the pedophilia, and I mentioned this one time before, I never realized how it could go on so much in the Witness organization until I watched this movie about Joe Paterno, the football coach of the Penn State football team. And when I seen the movie, I came to understand how everybody protects the university. The coach, even though one of the coaches walked in on the act, he didn't do anything. He found a way to protect. The president and the vice president of the university didn't do anything, but they found a way to protect the university. The governor at the time, Rick Santorum, he knew about it, but he found a way to protect the university. What I'm trying to say is that you can see very clearly that the Jehovah's Witnesses are protecting the organization and the money. They care less about the people. And just like the Penn State University, they didn't care about all the pedophilia going on. They wanted to protect the name and the holiness of the university.
Yeah, that's quite a story, Michael. No, I remember you told that before. But these guys, like this man Tyrone, he was thinking maybe the government was involved with all of this. I mean, there's a lot of things happening that's being covered up, I'm sure. But thank you for sharing that story, Mike. It's the whole world is corrupt, isn't it, huh, Mike? But even last night, the whole world is just. I mean, we could talk about it till the cows come home. It's unreal.
Yeah. I think Elon Musk said, you could take a stick in a dark room and throw it, and you're going to hit corruption if you're dealing with the government.
Yeah,
so,
it's unreal.
So, it's and you and I both know, Rick, what's the total answer, but and it's our job now just to be Christ-like all the way through until the end.
Well, I'm glad that I have a contract with Jesus. That's what I'm happy
Amen.
over. It's easy to have that contract. It doesn't really cost you a thing. And when, difficult times do hit, which it does in everybody's life, I don't care who you are, at some time you'll have a difficult road to walk on, and God can be there with you. And it's so easy to get on that right road. But it's just a shame, Mike, that so many people, they just don't want to do it. For whatever reason, I'm not sure. It's terrible.
Eventually, God will call them.
Yeah.
They'll be touched.
Well, good for you, Mike. Well, I like your position. I didn't see last night. I liked your comments, but I was afraid that what it would do. When the next man came and started, I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Sometimes it's hard to pull out of it. But I
I completely understand, and that's why I called you back and apologized. I knew what you were saying.
I love you, Mike. You're a good guy, but you're on my side. I love you. Good man. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you too, Rick. Take care.
Yeah. Well, Anne Marie, I'll tell you.
Thank you to Mike, because I watched that movie with Joe Paterno because of him, and it gave me a greater understanding of what's going on in Jehovah's Witness. But I wanted to ask you something,
Yeah.
Rick and Anne-Marie. When is when Jesus died, when is it? It's coming up soon.
Oh, the memorial.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, the Watchtower did make an announcement. I didn't get the date. I was reading about this morning. Sorry, Grace, but I got some announcements that they sent to me. from this fellow that sends announcements out. But I don't have the date right here. I'll bring it up next Saturday night. I'm sorry. Yep. I think it's in April this year. I'm not sure though. Thank you, Grace.
Because they are rejecting Jesus. So it is a satanic thing to do. And they are also a bloodthirsty organization because they don't accept blood for the people. And if a young woman gives birth to a child and she hemorrhage, then she will die. And that's horrible. And if you think about Jesus, he said, even if it's the Sabbath, you should rescue an animal. But Jehovah's Witness, they don't rescue their own children. So it's a horrible organization. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Grace. I'm looking at this announcements and reminders. The 2025 memorial preparations, but it doesn't go into when it is. Now that's weird. I'm just taking a look here to thumb through this to see when it's going to be, but it doesn't say. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Maybe okay. Well, they're going to start their memorial campaign in March. So let's see when it's going to be. When it is scheduled for. Evidently, it's going to be held. They still don't say what day it's going to be on. That's weird. It's either the end of March or somewhere around the 1st of April. Thank you, Grace, for calling in. Thank you. All right. All right.
What Grace said.
I'm sorry?
Grace said, could I comment on what Grace said? I know we're like way over.
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes, Anne-Marie. Go ahead. Yep.
Well, Grace brought something that I really hope everybody does not miss. Grace brought out that the memorial, what Watchtower calls the most important night of the year, is actually a satanic ritual where you take to your hand the symbol that represents the blood that Christ poured out on our behalf. You take that symbol in your hand, the glass of wine, knowing what it is, what it represents, look at it, and pass it on. Don't accept it. Don't partake. And you take the symbol, the bread that represents Christ's body that he willingly sacrificed and suffered for us. You look at it, knowing what it represents. You don't partake. You pass it on. What a slap in the face of our Heavenly Father for the one and only kind of salvation he gave mankind. And it's like spitting in the face of Jesus as he lay dying and suffering on the cross. And that's what Grace brought out. That is a satanic ritual. And the other thing she brought out is the blood. The blood is sacred because it contains the life. And life belongs to Jehovah. Life belongs to Heavenly Father. Life belongs to our God. And Christ shed it for us. And it's the same thing like Grace brought out. When they teach that you have to bleed to death, you cannot take in blood which contains the life. You have to let your wife, your mother, your child bleed to death. It's the same rejection of life that comes from our Heavenly Father. I'm just so glad Grace brought it out. Thank you for letting me speak.
Well, very good. In fact, Grace, that memorial, according to Shaq, thank you very much. He's listening in on YouTube. The memorial this year for the Jehovah's Witnesses is April 12th. April 12th. So thank you, Shaq, for bringing that to our attention. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming in. Hey, we had a good day here today with Tyrone and all you guys calling in. We appreciate it and commenting on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you very much. And we'll be back with Anne-Marie's program. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their story of being in the Watchtower. That'll be 2 weeks from today. Thank you all, though. We really appreciate your presence, and we hope you all stay safe and keep waving that flag of victory. We're going to go to the Christian court. Now, don't head for the mountains. We mentioned the term Christian, and everyone heads for the mountains. But stay with us. We get some peculiar questions that Christians would ask. I think you'll find it very, very fascinating. In other words, one of the questions on the court today, Is it a sin for a Christian to swear? Oh, we got to hear what the scholars have to say about that. So anyways, that's coming up next right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. Thank you. All right, let's end this stream, which we're doing right now. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. All right. End stream. Okay. Got to make sure I push the right